Hello, and welcome to another video segment on the Tournament Pairing Program software version. In this video, we'll be covering specifically various options you have for entering players into an event that you'll be conducting using TPP. I'm going to open up the Tournament Pairing Program on my computer, and I'm going to click the Create button to start a new event. And I'm just going to call this one the Player Test Championship. And I'm going to leave all the settings as is because we're not going to go through and do future work with this. We're just going to highlight how you can add players in a variety of ways. Down at the bottom we can see the name of the event and 0 players. Under Players, we have multiple options, including the very top one, Add/Remove Players from the GHIN Handicap Program. Here, we can look into the roster at your club and simply arrow over anybody that will be playing in the event that we're working with. Once I have, you can see I have 4 selected. Over here I'll say close. Down at the bottom, 4 players are currently in the event, so we can add all the players that are on your roster easily that way. And I can continue to add players in a variety of ways. I don't have to use the same method to add the entire field for an event. So let's go back to Players. And the third one down says Copy Players from an Existing Tournament. So if I click on that, you'll see a drop down of all the tournaments that are currently on your Tournament Pairing Program software version. And if I know that a few players played in a prior event, I can select that event, find that golfer, and move them over accordingly. Once I click Close, I'll say yes to saving my changes, and now those additional golfers are in this event as well. Yet another way to enter players is manually. Go back to Players, Other Add/Remove Options, which expands out a long list of options, and I am going to choose the Manual Guest Entry. This opens up a manual entry box where we can type in first name, last name, and any other player info that you wish to keep for the individual in this event. Once you say OK, the field's blank and the player has been added. So we'll do another one here. We'll call this guy Test Golfer. I say OK. You see at the bottom right now I have 8 players, but the moment I click OK, I've added Test Golfer to my event, and now he's the 9th player in this event. I'll go ahead and cancel. For an easier way to enter players manually, I recommend going to Players, Other Add/Remove Player Options, and choosing the Custom Player Entry. I'll expand this window to make it a little larger. Right now we can see first name, last name, and city are the 3 columns I have in this grid. I can do a Select Fields option, and whatever's on the selected side will be on this grid. So we could see I had first name, last name, and city. I'm going to scroll down and add email as well. I'll move email over and say OK. Now you can see I have first name, last name, city, and email. So let's add a golfer this way. And I will add Bill Jones from Des Moines, and his email will be jones@gmail.com. I could add another golfer, Bob Smith, also from Des Moines. His email will be smith@gmail.com. And I could go on as many as I needed here to add them. Once I'm ready to go, I'll click Apply. 2 players have been processed. I'll say OK to close this window out, or I'll go up to the top and click Close. Now I'm up to 11 players in this event, adding them in a variety of ways. If we go to Players, and Tournament Player Management, we'll be able to access the players that are in our event currently. And you can see some of the individuals have a lot of information in them. If we go down to the bottom here and select Bill or Bob, you can see that I have their first name, last name, city, and email, which correspond with how we entered them in the custom player entry grid. And we can go ahead and update any information here as well, should it become available to us after we've entered them. For example, let's say Test Golfer was just a name we were holding. Now we found out his real name is Gary Larson. We'll just type right over the first name and last name and click Save, and now we haven't added a new player. We've just renamed the golfer that we initially put in as first name Test, last name Golfer. And we could update any other information too. If we know that Gary is from Urbandale and we wanted that in there, we could put that and click Save. The more information you have within the player fields, the more information you can obtain by running reports. So when it comes time to run a scoring report or a pairing report, if you want more info than just their first and last name, perhaps you want cities when listing your results, you'd want to have the corresponding city in their account. I'm going to close this and show you one last way we can go ahead and put players in an event, and that's by importing from an Excel file. I'm going to open up an Excel file I've been working with on my computer here, and we see that I have in column A first names, column B second names, cities in C, state is in D, the email and the phone number are in column E and F. And you can really have any info you want in here. You could have it just being a simple first name, last name, but if you want more info to be pulled into the player's account, go ahead and put that in the corresponding row for the golfer. One thing to note, the Excel file does have to be in a CSV format. So if I go to File and Save As, the Save As type needs to be CSV, and it will say comma delimited.csv in the extension. Make sure you have that specific file there. Then you can name the file whatever you'd like. We'll click Save. I don't need to replace this because it's already on my desktop. You'd save it for the first time there. One other thing to note on CSV files, you can only have one worksheet within an Excel document when saving it as a CSV. So if you have multiple worksheets and you save it as a CSV, you'll only retain the very first worksheet in that document. I'm going to close this because my info is already saved here. So I'll close. I don't need to make any changes. Back into TPP. So I'm going to go back into Players, and this time I'll choose Import Tournament Players. The file extension will have to change to match the CSV file that we have saved on our computer. I save mine on the desktop, and I can see the file right there, the May 1, 2014 Scramble. Clicking Open, you'll see that that file name now populates in the file extension. And I'm going to go ahead and say Edit Wizard, and I'm going to say Next. And then you can see we'll have first name, which I have a field hidden there. That is not my first name column, so I'll go ahead and just skip that. The very top one is skip. We won't pull in that column of information. We can see the Tom, Ben, Tiger. That is first name, not last name, so we need to change that to the appropriate information there. That's first name. I can see that that column is indeed my last names. I have cities in that column, followed by states. I have an email field for my players, and I can move the bar over here, and I see that my final field is actually phone number. Phone. Once you have every column appropriately labeled by the field type, go ahead and say Finish. Once that's done, go ahead back up to the player import box and click OK. It'll import the players on that list according to how you labeled their field types. I'll say OK. Now you can see I jumped all the way up to 43 players, and if I go to Player and Tournament Player Management, I'll see some of the players I had in there. For example, I had Billy Casper. We can see that the first name and last name are in the correct fields, as well as a city, a state, an email, and a phone number. You may have noticed I had a couple of TBDs on my list there. For a future video, I'm going to be using the same import and making teams of 4 for a scramble event, and I just pretended that Team 1, Team 2, and Team 8 only know 3 of the 4 players right now. So I kept a line for them, essentially, putting their team number and TBD in first name and last name, so they'd come in as a team of 4, and I'll show you that in a future video. But we could go ahead and once we know who the player happens to be, I could update them. To change his name, click Save, and now I went right over top of the one TBD player and renamed him to the appropriate name once we found out who the golfer was. So I can click Close there, and you see I have 43 players in my event now. So there you see a variety of ways you can enter players in. I'd say the most popular 2 would be Players, Other Add Remove, and Custom Player Entry, where you can go ahead and just get your select fields how you want of I'd say the most popular ways to add players would be the Custom Player Entry, where you can select the fields, first name, last name, and any other data you wish to keep on the players, type them in, say OK, and you can continue to go back in and update this as you know more players. And then the other way would be you're importing from a CSV file. Clubs will go ahead and maintain that CSV file and keep updating it as players sign up. And once you get fairly close to the event and you're ready to start putting the players into TPP, we can go ahead and import them in. That doesn't mean we can't make any last-minute changes if a player drops out or we have a name change after you've imported them in. So if you have any questions on how to add players, please feel free to contact the IGA at any time. As you can see, there are a variety of ways to do it.